Good morning. Hard Times guy here. We're going to continue family part two, and we're going to go around the room like I promised you. Behind me, and I don't know how well you can see this, but I got a problem with the light. Certain places I get, and that big chandelier gets in the mirror. I don't know how that's going to work out anyway. I might be in the dark, but hopefully you can see that big mirror behind me on the wall. And it's probably 42 inches, maybe 4 feet square. It's heavy, has a heavy frame, heavy glass, beveled mirror. And I'm not going to stand here. I'm uncomfortable standing here. I'm going to stop and move things around where I can sit down and talk to you. But I want you to look at that mirror. That's what we're going to talk about first. That mirror belonged to my mother. And there's things about the mirror I don't know. And there's things about the mirror I do know. And there's things about the mirror I believe because of what I do know and my observations about the mirror. That mirror was originally on a dresser, and boy, it's hard to imagine that they had dressers with a mirror on them that big, but they did, and most of those for that style were somewhere between 1920 and probably about 1935, and I would probably err on the older side of that. In the 20s mostly. That particular one was at the end of the Golden Oak era, and it had originally the frame, I think that frame's maple, the frame looked like it was oak. They had a process where they grain painted what they considered to be inferior woods, poplar, maple, pine, some woods like that to make them look like more expensive woods, and in this case oak. And they did that a lot about the same time that that style of mirror was made. And I've even known people who bought, when golden oak furniture was popular, they bought a piece of bedroom furniture and thought they'd made a good buy on a piece of oak, and when they went to, it had the dark varnish on it and they wanted to turn it golden again. When they went to strip it, they stripped all the oak off of it and it looked like that mirror when they got done, no grain, because that mirror there is really maple. And I think what happened with that mirror, I think there was an old dresser in our family that went by the wayside, but that mirror was so good that someone decided to make it this type of a mirror and hang it on a wall. And I think that someone was my Grandpa Sam. I know it was my Grandpa Sam who did that to it and put the hangers on it. I don't know whose decision that was. It might have been something my mother commissioned him to do, or it might have been something that he did and then he gave that mirror to my mother. But I know the mirror was in the hands of my Grandpa Sam before it ever got to our house on 15th Street. And I've hung that mirror many times because it is really heavy. You have to find wall studs to hang it. And for a long time I hung it with the same screws. My grandfather gave my mother, he either gave her these screws with instructions or he hung the mirror the first time it was hung. And it had some 2.5 inch long brass wood screws. And Mom, when the mirror got taken down, she saved those screws and she put it back up again in its new location with those same screws. And so that mirror moved with her for a while. And she gave it to me, I think, in about 1976. I think it either coincided with Betty and I moving into this house, and she gave it to us because she saw a place in the house that she thought it would be a great place to have that mirror. And that mirror has been on that wall ever since we've owned this house. And we wallpapered this room a couple of times, and the mirror had to come down to do that, but it went back up in the same place. So my mother had the mirror. My grandfather restored the mirror. He put those hangers on it that are 16 inches apart, and he may have hung that in our house on 15th Street the first time it was hung. I can't imagine him trusting my father to hang that mirror after he did the amount of work that he did to get it in that position and give it to Mother. But I don't remember my grandfather ever being in our house on 15th Street. In fact, I don't even remember my grandmother ever being there, but I'm sure she was. I can remember her lots of times pulling up in front of the house and honking a horn for me to come and go fishing with her. But as far as either one of them actually being in our house, if they were, it just escapes my memory. So, as I said, there's things that I know about the mirror, and there's things that I surmise about the mirror from what I do know. That mirror is given to my mother by her father, I believe in probably 1954, 55, 56, in there somewhere. She hung it on the wall on 15th Street. I think I took it down and rehung it every time she moved. Finally, she gave it to me in 1976. And I hung it on that wall. And it's basically been there ever since. We're looking now at a primitive cupboard. And it looks like what would have been a short cupboard, but actually it was originally a tall cupboard. It had doors this height at the top. It had the drawer there in the middle, and then it had drawers that were probably about 2/3 this height at the bottom, and the thing was a good 2.5 feet taller than it is originally. And this is one of those things that I have something written about and intended to read from my computer like I did the other day. In fact, I promised you I'd do that rather than what I'm doing, but since I've already started, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you the story. I called Kurt earlier in the week to find out when he and Mary moved from Cherry Hill Edition out on West 50, where they used to live, to a road called Woods Ferry Road, and he couldn't remember, and he called Mary. Turns out it was 1993, and when they made that move, Betty and I went, and we spent all day helping them move, several trips back and forth to get them moved from where they lived on Cherry Hill to Woods Ferry Road. And at the end of the day, when we were about through getting everything done, Kurt said, "There's something down in the basement I want you to look at." So we went down the basement. That basement is, this is an old Victorian house, and that basement is an old basement, and it's rather damp down there. I don't know this, but it probably has water standing in it, after a big rain. But anyway, this cupboard was there, and it was a tall cupboard, but about the bottom 6 or 8 inches of it was gone because it sat in water often enough that it just began to rot away. And it had like a medium gray paint on it, and it had some red trim around it, and it was pretty ratty looking. There weren't any doors on it. The drawer was still with it, but there were no drawers. And Kurt said, "I'm going to give you that if you want it." And I looked it all over, and I liked it really well. It looked like firewood to him, but it looked like a treasure to me. And I said, "Yeah, I'll take that." And in fact, I was wanting to get it out of there before Mary knew it was down there, because she probably would have liked to have it too. Kurt had pointed it out to her and told her he's going to give it away, but at any rate, Kurt was just going to bust it up, just get it out of there. And we couldn't get it out of there. It was too tall. Somebody had poured the steps. The only way into that basement was one of those lift the door outside and go down the steps through the basement wall on the outside of the house. And those steps had deteriorated to the point somebody poured new concrete steps right over the top of them. and the opening to get out wouldn't allow this thing to come out as even with the bottom rotted off. It still wouldn't come out of there. We had to take a chainsaw and cut some more off the bottom before we could get it out of there. And we did that, cut the bottom off of it, and I got it off, and I brought it home, and I leveled it up. And I wanted to save the paint that was on it, and we set it out on the, back in those days, we had a closed-in back porch, and we set this out on the back porch, and I started trying to put some kind of a finish on it that would preserve the paint that was on it and keep it on there, but the thing had dandruff. I mean, you do something to it, and the next day when you went back to see what the outcome of what you'd done was, there would be little bits of paint all around it, because the paint would just fall off of it. If you touched it, I mean, it just fell off in handsfuls. Little fine, it was like shaking a salt shaker or something, and it would be on the floor. And after a couple different things that I tried to save that paint, I finally gave up, and I scraped all the paint off of it and decided to finish it in the Aunt Colleen style for yellow poplar. I got it all down to natural wood, and then I put some walnut stain on it. It didn't have these doors. In fact, the frame on these doors was the bottom shelf, not the very bottom shelf, but the one in the middle of the bottom part. There was a shelf there, and it was the similar wood as the piece. And I took those, and I went to a friend of mine. His name's Clovis, and he helped me make these doors to fit this. And then the insert panel, which looks great now, but it's been 27 years. It was brand new poplar, and poplar's kind of green when it's new, and that always looked like something that was brand new when I put it in. I worried about it for a long time, but 27 years has taken care of that. It all looks like it's the original old thing now, but these doors were actually made from a shelf from the original piece. So there it is, poplar, short cupboard, once was a long cupboard, salvaged from a basement on Woods Ferry Road, given to me by my brother Kurt, even though when I talked to him this week, he didn't remember anything about it. So I guess we don't have to worry that he gave it to me, but I'll remember that he gave it to me. And it's something that I've always been rather fond of. I thought it turned out really well, and it's a good period piece from the probably 1860 to 1880 period. Next thing we're going to look at is what's known as a lawyer's bookcase, or a stack bookcase, or an oak stack bookcase. Sitting over here in this corner, and before it's over with, I'm going to walk the camera in, let you get a better look at it. But right now, where we're at, it's good enough. The thing's full of VHS tapes. Betty went through a period of time where she thought she had to buy every VHS tape that came out, and I told her those things are going to be obsolete for you watching the second time, and they pretty much were. But anyway, it's full of VHF tapes. I'm going to read to you what I wrote about this, and then I'm going to talk about it just a little bit after that. My first recollection of this oak stack bookcase is from my grandparents' house. It sat just inside the front door and to the left at 601 T Street. This bookcase sat next to Grandpa Sam's gray recliner and was filled with paperback Western novels. It remained there for several years before it was moved to the hall or foyer that led to the bathroom and back bedroom. It had a stand with 6-inch tall legs under it. Sometime before or after my mother gained possession of it, this stand was either destroyed or lost. My mother had the bookcase sitting atop a short two-door washstand. At some point in time, Mother gave the bookcase to Amy. I don't remember when it came into my possession, but it was probably when Amy moved to Texas. I have been keeping it for Amy ever since. The official status of this bookcase is that it is a treasured piece of family history that is owned by Amy and stored, maintained, and protected by me. That's what I wrote, and all that's pretty accurate, pretty much true. Amy's a big fan of my videos too. She's probably my second biggest fan behind Shannon, and she has even outlined a video for me to do and commissioned me to do it, which chronicles things that are important to her and would be important to her daughter Miranda, so that they have something to remind them of family history things. And Amy, when she was outlining that video for me, she didn't include this bookcase in it because of where it is and the situation. She forgets that it is hers, I guess. I don't know, but then when she remembers it, she wants it. She'll probably, when she sees this video, text me or call me and want me to put it on the airplane. That's not going to happen, but it's here. It's hers. Anytime she wants it, she can take it with her, but she's going to have to come and get it. Okay, I'm going to let that end it, and I'm going to, except for moving the camera in, giving you a better look at this bookcase. And if anybody out there has a stand for this bookcase, just a little four-legged frame that it's set up on, kept it up off the floor, and there's lots of different styles of them. I would assume this one had plain stickly looking legs. Anybody has one of those in its original finish that's in good shape, I can tell you where there's a customer for it. I'd pay a pretty good price for one that fit this book stand. Okay, now you're getting a better look at it. It's got actually there's a 4-head VCR player sitting there on top of it, so we could watch some of those videos if we wanted to, I guess. And you can see that she ran out of room in the bookcase for all the videos she had, and so she's got them stacked in the floor over there in the corner too. But yeah, this thing is, I see some pretty good movies in those videos there. And there's the stacked bookcase. Belonged to my grandfather. It's got a little damage in that top door on the upper right corner, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. I had to put a new glass in the middle of it one time because I didn't have a glass, but that's a 4-piece, stacks off into 3 different bookcases, and the top stacks off. 4-piece stacked bookcase from toward the end of the Golden Oak era. Used to belong to my grandfather, Sam Eddington. I'm the Hard Times guy. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and till next time.